Hi everyone! So today I'm going to be showing you how to join in the round. You're probably here because you're ready to embark on your circular knitting journey. Circular knitting can be done on circular needles, as the name suggests, such as the ones that have been provided for you, and you should be very familiar with them by this point, or double pointed needles. You might be wondering how you get these straight little sticks to knit in a spiral. Well, the answer is that you cast on your stitches and you basically split them between 4 needles so that they go around, and you'll use this extra needle right here to just work across, and now all the stitches from that needle will be on this, and so on and so forth. I find circular needles a bit less fiddly because I don't really like to do the needle management. There's just too many things to lose. And you're probably looking at making a project like our seed stitch cowl. Introduces you how to work in the round, as well as this wonderful knit purl texture by alternating the types of stitches that you're using. So unlike the flat pieces that we've made so far, like the garter stitch cowl and the stockinette stitch cowl, where you seam at the end to create a continuous loop, circular knitting allows you to just knit in a spiral. So basically you cast on one edge and you knit in a spiral all the way up to create a tube. The other project that you could be working on with knitting in the round that's very common is a hat. And I'm gonna scooch it around that way so you can see the whole thing. With a hat, we typically start from the edge of the brim, and we cast on, we join in the round, and we knit in a spiral all the way up to about halfway, and then we start decreasing to create the crown, and then we end with just a few stitches at the top that we bind off. So that's also circular knitting. Those are the first couple things that you do with circular knitting. So how do we go about doing that? Here we go. So I've cast on as usual with a long tail cast on. Super great for all sorts of projects because it's so stretchy and so stable, especially if you've left spaces in between your stitches like we recommend. And you'll see that I have the tail and my working yarn coming off my right hand needle, and this is the first stitch I've cast on, and this is the last one. With joining in the round, a very important thing for you to be doing is to double and triple check that you see this entire spine throughout your project. So you don't want it twisted, and by that I mean something like this, where you see it comes around here and then twists and goes to the side, and then you probably end up with something like this. If you join in the round there, you're going to end up with some sort of Mobius strip, and there's nothing to do about it except rip out your entire project and start over again. So this is where you should spend some time, be a little bit paranoid, check it 2 or 3 times to make sure that you can see the entire spine. What I like to do is to have it all in the middle so that I can see it. So here we go. I have my last stitch that I cast on and my first stitch that I cast on. I'm going to make sure that my spine isn't twisted, and I'm going to come to this position. So the first thing we're going to do is to pass this first stitch that you cast on your left hand needle to your right hand needle purlwise. So I enter that like I would a purl stitch, and I just pass it over. And then I'm going to take this last stitch that I cast on, so the second stitch in at this point on your right hand needle. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to come through from left to right and grab it. And this is where it gets a little bit fiddly. I don't want to lose that stitch, so I'm just going to hold on to it and pass it over that first stitch on your right hand needle. And I'm going to drop it off. So now you'll see that this last stitch that you cast on, that was previously the second stitch in on this needle, is now hanging onto and anchored to this stitch right here. It's a bit loose and floppy right now, but you know what? We're just going to tug on our working yarn, and it's going to tighten right up. So here we go. This, remember, is the first stitch that you cast on. So I'm going to move it back onto my left hand needle, and that's going to be the first stitch that I knit. Now at this point, this is going to be your beginning of row. So I'm going to want to insert a stitch marker, as your pattern probably calls for, and just slip it onto my needle right there. And I'm going to knit, or knit and purl, whatever your pattern calls for. But at this point, you're just going to start working on your project. And you'll see that this join that I just showed you gives a very invisible join. I can't even see where it's been joined up, especially when I just pull on that a little bit. So this is my favorite way of joining in the round. There are a few different ways of doing it, as there always are in knitting, but this is my favorite way, and this is what I recommend that we use. So that's how to join in the round. Happy knitting, guys.